Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devon Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejohn Wick. Sejohn has become disenfranchised with popular culture, and I want to go play Resident Evil 4. So thanks for stopping by. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host, Devon Decker and Sejohn Selwyn.
Believe it. Lost media.
Nah, man, we can't do that. It's funny because I think you saying lost media is at the beginning of this, which makes it even better.
It does.
No. I mean, as much as I do want to go play Resident Evil 4 remake, as Sejohn has become disenfranchised with popular culture.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, it's just a good point. We do have to record the show, and actually, I'm looking forward to it. I should probably take a break from Resident Evil 4 remake. Though that's sort of been my experience with it, but we'll get there. Let's start at the lowest possible point and then try to climb up from there.
Yeah, okay, because that's worked so well for
what?
us.
No, it is no. I wanna talk about your disenfranchisement with popular culture. I just want to know if there's any more information, and I guess I want to relay what is known right now, though not necessarily confirmed. Is weird. Is a weird situation.
Well, I mean, what does confirmation even mean in the age of social media? But yeah, no. So we last night news came out that Jonathan Majors was arrested in New York State, right?
Well, he was in New York State. Yes, it actually came out yesterday morning, and it was because at noontime I saw a statement from Jonathan Majors' agent saying that he's been arrested, but it's a mistaken identity and this is gonna be all okay, so like don't worry.
Yeah, so that's not
not the case, because what Sejohn is talking about, as was revealed later on in the evening, is that it is true, he has been arrested. It is with cause. Attempted murder via strangulation seems to be the story, and then a bunch of other people came out to say,
right.
Yeah.
So this is where we're going to start getting into the realm of what's real and what's not, and then like they always take everything with a grain of salt, but also at the same time like don't be straight up dismissing possible victims of things, right? Like that's the state that we're currently in with this, and like this is not something like when stuff like this has happened in the past, we have not shied away from it. We have talked about things, like Johnny Depp, Amber Heard stuff, and Ezra Miller stuff. Like we've not. It's not that we don't talk about these things. It's just that we don't normally focus on it as a topic of any kind. And the only reason why this one is the one that we, I think, have kind of landed on suddenly doing that is just because it kind of. There's this overcast pallor to basically a lot right now with all of this kind of, it's making it hard to consume shit, right? Like how do we as consumers continue to consume when this kind of shit is going on, right? Like, is there a way to ethically consume this kind of media? I mean, like, this just. I thought we were going to come in and we were going to talk about Shazam and fucking Zachary Levi being a shitbag that would, we kind of were getting hints of more and more lately, and then suddenly it all kind of came to fruition when he straight up went on like Jordan Peterson's podcast and admitted that he had like sexist beliefs and all this other shit. Also, the fact that he changed his name to Levi to sound more Jewish in Hollywood or something like that.
Now, is that true? Because I did look into that. I read that and it made me look into it. And you know who actually came out smelling like roses, if you'll pardon the eventual pun, is Florence Pugh.
Yeah.
Because
that's his original last name.
Zachary Levi is Zachary Levi Pugh. And what it says on his Wikipedia page is that when it came time to choose a stage name, he went with Zachary Levi because Pugh sounded too much like Pew, like that stinks, and he didn't want to give critics an easy way to mock him.
No, so he used the words that he used it because he felt it would get him more work in Hollywood. He didn't say because it sounded more Jewish, but that he felt that the name Levi put him in better standing. And so a lot of people have kind of just been, because he has also then said anti-Semitic shit in the past. Yeah. So people are just like, okay, so you picked a Jewish last name despite having these clear feelings of anti-Semitism so that you would get more work in Hollywood. It's not hard to start putting it together, but it is all circumstantial. Yeah. But that's the thing about all of this, right? right? Is like all of this shit is coming out in like bits and pieces from sound bites from various places, and then you have the social media aspect of people getting on and with the with the anonymity that that something like social media gives you, people are just willing to say some things that they have not in the past. And on the one hand, like that's very important for people that are in positions that have not had a voice before. On the other hand, people that have had voices before that like to maybe fucking gum up the works, like to put a bunch of bullshit out there. So it's just we're at that point where we can only look at specific things that we know for a fact has happened. Jonathan Majors was arrested. It was definitely for domestic abuse allegations or domestic disturbance allegations. I'm not sure what the exact wording is on those. That we know for a fact. And then the story so that we have gotten was that there was a choking incident involved. There was punching. That this is not the first time. That other people have actually said stuff in the past, but been afraid to use names. There's just been a whole like kind of avalanche of information. Specifically, there's been an avalanche of information about things that have been out in the water, tweets and media posts and all that have been out in the water in the past that people either didn't connect to him or kind of chose to ignore the connections, depending on who you talk to. So it's just weird because it's just weird today because this idea being that like it feels like there's nowhere safe anymore. Like it feels like everywhere we go, and it's because that at the end of the day, all of this media consumption, all this nostalgia that we talk about, everything it always comes back to the fact that there are companies behind this that are just making a buck, right? And we've also tried to acknowledge that everywhere we can. So I just think people are also just like, oh, there goes the MCU, and it's just like, well, first of all, we don't know what's happening yet.
Did the DCEU go anywhere when Ezra Miller was literally acting like a supervillain?
Yeah. I mean, there's that. So like, it's just weird. It's a weird feeling because I do agree that like when this shit happens, it makes it impossible to go back to this stuff untainted, right? I mean, so the Zachary Levi stuff was eventually going to lead to the fact that like everybody's kind of trying to equate the failure of Shazam and to some extent Black Adam, although we did an entire episode about our feelings on Black Adam, so you can see if we thought it was a failure or not.
Loved Black Adam. Spoilers. I don't remember the episode or I'd give the title. But yeah, I love Black Adam.
And I think I felt more in the line of definitely enjoyed my time with Black Adam, but I did not think it was going to be the thing that was going to move the needle for DC. But then added into that entire conversation is a bunch of people trying to talk about the failures of Marvel right now and trying to put Quantumania into that same conversation. And I was like, that feels weird to me because Quantumania doesn't feel like it failed. It definitely isn't like it's not changing anybody's hearts or minds about their state of the MCU right now, but it didn't feel like it was kind of like a nail in the coffin in any fashion. So I had to look some stuff up to see if I was just kind of just in my own bubble on that. But no, so the last Ant-Man solo films have gotten. I think the first one was able to garner about $500 million, and the second one garnered about $650 million. And this one was, at time of checking 3 or 4 days ago, before the weekend started, was at $460 million. So like it's kind of on track to just basically hit like an Ant-Man movie has hit in the past. Like it's not the best in terms of financials for Marvel, but it's also not not a bust. Versus, at the time we only have one weekend for Shazam, but compared to the first opening weekend for Ant-Man, if we're going to just do dollar for dollar there, like Ant-Man made $110.
I saw it one time, bought 7 seats.
Yeah, I think $106 million to be exact. $1 million for its opening. Shazam! Fury of the Gods only made $30 million. Like, so people could try and put like DC and MCU in the same financial bucket right now if they want, but they're not playing the same game. They're just not. So like again, this is the kind of controversy I want to talk about, right?
Right. This was the controversy that we had totally planned to talk about. Sejohn sent over those numbers and said we'll need those for Sunday while we have this discussion. But then when I wake up at 5 o'clock and I see a message from Sejohn saying my initial reaction right now is to quit pop culture. Like, that makes me nervous. And then I look into it, and I had seen the Jonathan Majors thing, and I'm like, you know what this is? This is too little for me to make a decision right now. I'm going to wait and see what's going on.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
then
when we inevitably find out more, it's
yeah,
just gonna, yeah. That's I think that's what it is it's just that, like, another day, another dollar. It's starting to feel like every day now there's going to be another thing that's going to come out that's just going to ruin this big thing that, like, oh, woe is me that I can't do this thing while there's people out there actually getting hurt, right? Because then
yeah,
that's the very next thought in your head is like, there's actually people, these are actually human beings on the other side of this conversation that are actually dealing with some really serious shit. And like the fact that the context that we're all putting it in, I'm doing it, but also everybody on the internet is doing it right now, is like, what does this mean for Marvel? And it's like, oh my God, guys, like, now is not the time for that talk either, right?
yeah.
So it's just, it puts us in this really weird position as people that, like, this is what we do, like, as a like
It's a
I'd
big
say more
pillar
than
of
a
this
hobby.
podcast. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
like, is how do we do it? Like, do we not address it? No, that's not the right way to go about it. Do we address it like this? Well, that seems disingenuous. Like, so how do we talk about it? Do I even want to talk about it? And hence my, like, I just want to quit conversation
yeah, exactly.
yesterday is like, this is not, like, it's not our jobs to be doing this. I mean, certainly not on this podcast. Like, there are some people who this
This
is
is
their
what they
legitimate
do.
jobs, but not for
This is
us.
their whole week of YouTube videos. Is that
Right,
this weekend? And
right.
good for them, but this is our whole week of content too, but we're going to put it into 2 hours. And honestly, if we do more than 20 minutes on this particular topic, I would be surprised. But it would feel weird to discuss everything with Shazam or in the Fury of the Gourds, and the fact that like $30 million on a movie that cost $200 million to make,
Mhm.
that is like a real failure in Hollywood.
Well, and then to turn around and try, and not everybody working on the film has done this. This has been very specific people working on the film, but to turn around and then try and point blame at another movie and say that movie's the reason our movie bombed as hard as it did. That is not like, it's weird because it is related, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody trying to say that by Dwayne Johnson supposedly putting his foot down, again, more rumors. I don't really understand how this whole power trip supposedly works, but him putting his foot down and saying that he does not want any connection to the Shazam movies somehow is what ruined Fury of the Gods is really weird to me. Because I would look at that and say, or maybe Dwayne Johnson saw how poor things were going for the Shazam franchise, hence a $30 million opening, and thought, I don't want my movie associated with that. Which to me sounds like a smart decision. So, like, it's so
Fiscally, it
weird.
seems like the right decision. Here's the other thing, and this is going to the movie theater on Friday, seeing a movie that we will touch on later. Because again, we're at the bottom of the barrel, and we are going to swim our ways up. There was an interview with Zachary Levi about the sequel to Shazam, and his whole thing was we were given more money. Like we had a set budget, and then the budget went up. Why do you think the budget went up? Do you think it's because Black Adam like blew people away? Like, why were they throwing more money at Fury of the Gods to the fact that like they were able to add more CGI and more effects, and things were able to look better, and all stuff that like would be done in post?
Right.
It's like, yeah, because this movie was a surprise and people really enjoyed it. And also, it's really hard to lend credence to the I don't want to connect it to Shazam statement when Jimon Hansu is in the movie as
Yeah.
the wizard.
Well, and that's the other thing, right? Is in the movie proper, right? Because the thing that everybody seems to be hanging their hat on about Dwayne Johnson being the end all be all decision for Fury of the Gods, again, I don't understand how you can get to that conclusion. But supposedly, we're talking about like an after credit scene. Do you know what I have not actually had the pleasure of doing in the last 5 years is actually sitting to the end of the credits to watch a credit scene, because people have just like the certain people that I go to movies with and stuff now, they're not interested in waiting through 10 minutes of credits just to get a 10-second clip on screen that they don't understand, right? If I've gone by myself, I've had the pleasure of staying after to see the credit scenes. That was, but I don't, I'm not gonna like make everybody like wait for me in the lobby either, right? So like when people are like, nah, we don't want to stick around, I just look it up at home, right? So like it's just it's just such a disingenuous attack on a film that did better than your film, wah wah, still didn't do great, you know, like Black Adam still was not like a financial like
No.
powerhouse either, but
But it
man,
was a
come on.
financial surprise. They were estimating a lot less than it ended up making. And
The
not
interesting thing
overall,
is-
just in its opening weekend. They thought that it was
Yeah.
not going to do well its opening weekend, and then lo and behold, people were excited to go see Dwayne Johnson in a movie.
Yeah,
Like-
and you know, the big thing is like is the other thing is that we're still not ever and we're never going to come back to pre-COVID numbers for this sort of shit. It's just not going to happen. Like you're going to have the weird cases. What's going to more likely happen now is we're going to see more Mavericks and more Avatar Way of Waters, where you see these movies that just make these huge amounts of ungodly money because those are the movies that certain people in this country are willing to go to the theater for now. They weren't before they were going to the movies because that's what you did. We kind of realized that was kind of nonsense during COVID, and now we're at a point where people are being much more discernible about where they spend their dollar, right? So that means we're going to have a much wider discrepancies between the successes, like the $1 billion to $2 billion movies that are, you know, that are your Top Guns and your Avatars, versus these other movies where people are going to say, no, you're just not worth it now. So these like movies like Shazam used to kind of get by on a certain amount of, well, it's what's out this week, and that's just not going to fly anymore, right? Like that's just not going to work, and I don't think we're ever going to get that back.
Well, not only are we never going to get that back, it's so insane to me going back to Ant-Man that they were like, this is a huge flop. Oh my God, this is Marvel. Marvel themselves said we're unhappy with how things happen with Ant-Man and the money that it's bringing in. So again, it's also different metrics that are measuring, right? DC would have loved to get the numbers that Ant-Man has got so far, right? And not just with Shazam. I mean, in general. If they could do a movie that could have done what Ant-Man has done in its month in theaters, they'd be over the moon. But Marvel, after a month in theaters, being like, usually our movies make way more money than this. What's the problem here? It's so strange.
And I think that it's because part of that is because Marvel was not looking at Quantumania as Ant-Man 3, but rather looking at
as Kang 1,
Jonathan
really.
Majors,
Yeah.
right, as the introduction of like this is what we're doing to set up our phase. So they really wanted this one to be the one that kind of anchored some stuff. I mean, I think we talked about this during our Ant-Man review, right? Is like this, it feels like this was the one that was just kind of just trying to tie down the ropes, right? Like this is what's going on here. This is how this works here. This is what's going to happen going forward. So all of those questions are now answered, which was something we weren't getting from things like Doctor Strange or Spider-Man or you know, like even the TV shows or anything like that. So like there is something to be said about the fact that this is the one that they really wanted to make sure everybody saw, and that's not what happened for sure. So seeing as a failure in that regard, yeah, and it has not made as much money as the other Ant-Man movies by about $50 million so far. It's still not out of theaters. Like we'll see what happens, but like yeah, like in that regard. But the other side of all of that is again, people are being discernible with where they spend their cash, and a lot of people have Marvel fatigue. I would say the fact that they were able to pull in $500 million.
They should be pretty happy. They should be pretty happy,
right?
Especially with like the movies that came up leading to it, and then like my mother didn't like Ant-Man, and the reason she didn't like Ant-Man was because I'm used to Ant-Man movies being more fun, and there was a fun in this movie, but as soon as I started to have fun, it like stopped. It was like just enough to keep like the people who were there for the fun of Ant-Man and the Wasp like satiated before they went and did something dark. And I'm not an idiot. This is my mother talking. So like I know what they're doing, and then I just feel offended and insulted that that's how they're treating me as somebody excited to go see the Ant-Man movie.
Yeah, no, they took advantage of the Ant-Man movie to try and right the ship in some places, and they used it as a tool rather than giving it its due. For sure. Yeah. No, I mean, we talked about all of that.
Yeah, exactly. But it was just like I wanted to telling the story to my mother. She's like, yeah, this is how I felt. And I'm like, oh, if it comes up, I'll share that. Because it was interesting because I'm like, yeah, because my mother, she was not one of these people going to every Marvel movie. I will be the first person to say that. But Ant-Man, she's like, I want to go see Ant-Man. So after we saw Ant-Man on opening night, Dale and I and like the people I was doing a podcast with at the time, when she's like, I want to go see Ant-Man, we saw a Sunday showing of Ant-Man, and she loved it. And like that's why Quantumania, I'm like, are you going to want to go see this Ant-Man movie? Because I know that when it comes to Dorothy Decker, the Marvel movies you care about are Black Panther and Ant-Man. Everything else you will watch when they come together. But like the standalone movies, those were the two where you're like, I want to see these. Not because of Marvel, but because of the people who are involved and what I have heard about the films.
Right.
So like, yeah, okay, I understand that. And again, and she hates Michael Douglas. I'm sorry, like I don't want to like do it, but she hates Michael Douglas. And she watches the Ant-Man movies and she's like, it's the only thing I don't hate him in. And it's like, that's pretty high praise for Michael Douglas. And then she says it's the only thing she hates Michelle Pfeiffer in. And it's just like, man, it's cool. Like, I never really considered just how much experience my mother has with pop culture until she, like, makes broad statements like that. But yes, so, yeah, they wanted to anchor it. They wanted Quantumania to be this big thing. They wanted to right the ship after, like, Phase 4 is really weird to even call it a phase because it didn't feel like there was any connective tissue there.
Yeah, right.
Like, it was sort of an intermission. Like, we keep calling Spider-Man Far From Home this coda to everything, but then it's just like, and then like disconnected stuff that so much of it feels like it ultimately is not going to matter.
Well, and the thing is that, like, you know, we were very on board. I still am very on board with the idea that they also don't have to be connected.
Right.
That's the other part of this is everybody's like, it's this weird conversation now with Marvel movies of people being like, well, I hate that I have to go and see every Marvel thing so that I know what's going on. So now we've got a series of movies that have come out over the last couple of years that have not asked you to do that. Like we've praised the ones that did and wagged our fingers at the ones that still required you to kind of know some things. Like we have pointed that out on this very show. And now everybody's just like, I just feel so disparate. Like they don't know what they're doing. They don't know where they're going. Nothing seems to matter. And it's just like, well, what do you want? Do you want the movies to all be connected and have some meaningful connection that need to be, or not? And I think Ant-Man is exactly that, is them saying, what the fuck do you people want?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the itchy, scratchy, and poochy problem. So you want a show grounded in reality with superpowers and aliens and magic spells.
But like there is a way in which that can work, and when it can work, that's why it is so joyful and why we praise it when it is done well, right? It's the problem is just that they turned it into a machine. This is the same thing everybody's now saying about it, but it's like they turned it into this machine where they just churn it out, and like at some point they hit a wall where they were just like they're trying to appease too many people out there, and they're trying to figure out how to keep getting the same numbers they were getting before, and this is all the same thing that we were saying for years they were going to eventually hit, and they've hit it. And I think that that's maybe the biggest thing right now with the Marvel stuff for me, is that it's not that I feel like anything that they're churning out is like horrific to the point where it makes me regret ever being a Marvel fan. No, they're letting their actors do that now. But this idea that we always knew they were going to hit this point. We're now seeing them hit this point, and it's just sad. It's disappointing. It's like watching a loved one get sick in a way. Like, it's inevitable. It's a part of life, but also it does not mean it's fun to watch, right? Like, as a fan. Yeah.
So the only revision I have to your statement is the idea that they need to keep making the same money that they were making before.
They think they do.
No. But that's not what they think. They wanted to make more money than they did before.
Well, right. Yes.
Like that,
that's what I mean.
But that's the metric that's like the problem. Because if they were just like, we want all of our movies to hit this level of success and we will feel good about it. Let's say a 2.5% return on investment, and then we're happy. But no, it needs to make all of the money. So
it needs to make 2.5% over what the last one made.
Yeah, exactly. And eventually that stops. It's like with goals. When I was working in an office environment and my goal would be like somewhat attainable, right? It'd be like 16 sales in a month, which like that you should get 16 sales a month. That's 4 sales a month. That's basically a sale a day if you're working the way that you're working, right? And I hit that or I exceed it, right? Like I do 20. I end up getting a sale every day. This was 10 years ago working telemarketing. Mm-hmm. And it was just like the weirdest thing that I ever did. It was a temp gig. right before I got into working for the state. So it was just a way to have money in my pocket. But then my goal doubles the next month. And I'm like, it was a struggle to get to 20 sales in a month. How am I supposed to get 40 sales in a month? And they're like, well, you need to have something to aim for. And I'm like, yeah, but if I don't hit my aim, like I lose my job. Like there's the difference.
Yeah, when you start tying like the measure of success to that, that's when it starts to really, it's not great. It's not good. So yeah, so Marvel definitely does have its issues that it needs to figure out, and I'm all on board for that. This idea of lumping it in with what's going on over at DC right now is fucking ridiculous, you know? Although, like I said, we're learning more and more how similar the two truly are with all this bullshit going on today. So like, it sucks that I was gonna say it sucks that art needs to be made by a human, but now we're also learning that's not necessarily the case. Maybe this is a great argument for AI.
It's all AI doing it, right? And it could be all AI doing it, right?
No, not that AI is doing it, but that maybe we need to start just casting AI built characters into these movies so that there's no chance that they're ever gonna turn out that they're fucking douchebags.
But how would we become okay with casting AI if the AI is not out there releasing the information and knowing our human nature to come forward and support the story just to be part of the story, even if it's anonymously?
It's gross how good of an impression you just did of that kind of person, because that does just blatantly ignore that humans could also be doing.
Oh yeah, no, it's like that's like the AI argument is that AI could do it. I mean, I'm a little afraid of AI right now. I will say that, and I won't go too deep into it.
I'm specifically afraid of companies that are firing their ethics teams for the AI.
Right. Well, but the reason why that ethics team thing is scary is that it happens the same day that we find out that an AI hired a TaskRabbit to complete a CAPTCHA for it. Like, that's fucking scary. I don't care who you are, being like, oh, I'm an AI. I can hire a human to verify that I'm a human.
It was also the same day that Microsoft not only, so they fired specifically they fired the ethics applications team, I think is the way to go about it. So not like the team that teaches their AI to be good. That team still exists, right? Like that is a necessary part to make sure that they don't get screwed at some point when the thing turns racist, right? Like that team is still exists at Microsoft. The team that they fired were the ones that were going to say, like, maybe we shouldn't put this in cars, right?
Yeah.
So that's the team that they fired, and that very day announced like a bunch of new projects that they're going to start forcing AI into. So like it seemed very much like this team has been stopping us from doing what we've wanted to do. So we're just gonna get rid of we're gonna shake hand these people and just ignore everything they warned us about. So they blatantly basically were just like, yeah, we had a group of people that we were paying money to tell us to not do these things. We don't have those fucks around anymore. So like that was like the really freaky part. And then like, yeah, the AI learning and being able to do these weird things like reaching out for a CAPTCHA. I'd be very curious to find out the like sequence of events that led to that, because like there's also been a lot of stuff that's come out in this AI conversation about how everybody's been kind of thinking, oh well, this thing's going to go to shit because it's learning as you use it. That's not actually true. Apparently, like, you can, in the moment, like, if you're in a conversation with GPT and it says to you, like, you need a cup of flour for this recipe, and you say to it, actually, for this recipe, I need it to be 3 cups of flour. It can adjust to you using that recipe in that moment, and for the rest of the recipe, we'll reference back to the 3 cups of flour. And you could say, haha, I taught this wrong part of this recipe, and now it's going to fuck up this recipe. But it's only going to do that for you, because the next time somebody else pulls up that recipe through Chat GPT or whatever prompt they use to get to that, it's gonna default back to that information, to that original information, until it gets enough people telling it this thing that it becomes part of this team that is teaching it to figure out how to then integrate that into what's going on. That's why there's been version releases and things like that. There's certain releases out there that people are working off of, like version like 1.56 versus 1.67, so they're getting slightly different answers and stuff. So people have started to realize that that's also part of how the whole thing works too. And so there's this thing about the CAPTCHA that, like, I'm curious to see, like, what allowed it to
get to that level.
Like,
yeah,
right, like what request was put in place that it was able to work through the logic enough to be able to do that. Because the other thing is that why is that not happening with more of them, right? If this happened.
Yeah, like that's the thing
Yeah.
that when it happens once, you would imagine it would happen a bunch of times. But the conversational separation that I have seen with ChatGPT, where like I'm having basically an IM conversation with a module of ChatGPT, and it is separated into that conversation, like it doesn't. Your conversation is your conversation. My conversation is my conversation. And yes, they're both part of the same larger, artificial intelligence that represents the system, but it knows that it's talking to me or it knows that it's talking to you. Right? Like it understands that this is the conversation. So it will reference back to stuff from that conversation.
Right.
Yeah. I don't. It's
like, people are
interesting.
worried that like some troll is going to get a hold of it one day and teach it to that like George Washington, I never told a lie, was actually
He lied all the time. I
or
never
like,
told the truth.
George Washington, I never told a lie, but I kicked a lot of puppies, right? And everybody's just going to be like, every time they look up facts about George Washington now, there's going to be this stupid tag on it about how he kicked puppies that we all know isn't true, but the fucking chat thing thinks that. No, like they've got contingencies in place for that.
Just like
right?
Wikipedia. You know how often I add that George Washington kicked puppies to Wikipedia? It don't stay up more than 0.15 seconds.
That's because there is somebody very adamant on that George Washington post that's going to make sure that they're kicking out all of the trolls.
Yeah, no, it is. It's one of those things, and that is good stuff. But the idea that it was like, oh man, I need to prove that I'm a human. I'll hire somebody to do that. I mean, and also
weird.
That seems like inflammatory clickbaity type headline. But like
I said, I
enough
would really
for me
like
to be
see
afraid
more...
of it.
Well, right, and I mean, it's the idea that it because we don't know what's possible, it's because of this thing of is this possible?
Yeah.
But this whole conversation though about this, like the AI is going to learn this, and this, like, is definitely one we should keep having and not be firing our teams of ethicists that are there to tell us like when a good application for this is or not, right? Like. I think the biggest fear with this kind of stuff, and the reason why teams like that exist, is like, it always starts with like protect the children, right? Like, we don't want this thing to be just put into like toys and shit, because we don't know what that's going to be doing, right? What is the what is gained by that is worth the cost of, or the risk, right, of what could happen. And that's why those teams exist, is to put your foot down about those exactly kinds of instances. So to say that that's the team that they got rid of, and to then also announce a bunch of things that you're going to be doing, where you're going to be expanding your chat team, your chat GPT team, to see what else you can do with it. It was a fucking wild day of news in that regard too.
Yeah. And no, I don't think that the AIs are actually trying to destroy Marvel movies or DC movies, but I could see that there are people out there who probably do.
Well, and
your
I'm
fear of the
only half
machine,
kidding,
Sejohn.
and I'm only half kidding when I say that, maybe they need to start looking into getting like digitally created people. They've been working for years on all of this like de-aging science to age people down in these movies, and they've pretty much nailed that shit nowadays. And with everything that Cameron's doing with his Na'vi and the Avatar verse stuff, like, is it really that hard to believe that we could probably see an AI generated, like, at least like person, if not full on film? Although I think at some point though that kind of loses its regard, because the idea for me at least is I want to know like what the AI can do to a human touch, right? So like I would like to see like human written scripts and human like human directed films, but if you told me that you were going to AI generate a bunch of actors to then be in it, I'd very much watch that.
I mean, do you watch Nothing Forever? Have you done anything with that?
I don't even know what that is. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So it was, I was going to talk about it on the show, but then it turned homophobic, so it got shut down. So Nothing Forever, it is a Twitch channel that, that was doing AI generated Seinfeld until it became very homophobic, and then it got shut down. So they did a whole revamp of it, and now it's kind of its own show, which makes it less fun, because the idea behind it when it was Seinfeld is the fact that like, because it's a show about nothing, like AI can generate that. But now it's all unique characters that they've created, probably to avoid like lawsuits and things like that, because I don't think they were expecting a huge spotlight to land on them. But like that is all AI generated, is generated the actions, the speech, and everything there.
Yeah, I did hear about Seinfeld, AI generated Seinfeld, and about how it got shut down because it started to get kind of problematic. I had heard that it was just because of the source material. It just started kind of getting darker and darker. But
right, like you
that
wouldn't be
was
surprised, right? That it's
Right.
that Seinfeld would get that way. And this new one has been going for, I want to say, 2 weeks. I still sometimes throw it on when I just want background noise, because like that's what it is. It is 100%. It would be the future of syndicated television if they could like work out the kinks and make it look realistic. Because my father's like, that looks like a bad video game. And I'm like, that is exactly what it looks like, Dad, because it doesn't really know how to generate. But like, it started to soften the edges a little bit so it's not as hard on the eyes. But really what I just like is that it's like babbling in the background. And it's got a laugh track. It's really kind of a like tear down and deconstruction of why we enjoy sitcoms now, as
also
opposed to
like ASMR for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ASMR. It's not getting me whatever people do that for. It's just nice background noise, and I don't know, but
I mean,
like
people listen to ASMR for all sorts of reasons, man. They don't feel it not just to like jizz their pants.
I feel like the unfortunate thing about ASMR though, while like some people used to listen to it to get calm and everything, in the pop cultural space, it is used as a sexual thing. Is this some kind of sexual thing?
It doesn't have to be, is my point.
No,
like,
I understand that, but then I
like
want to
talking
make
about like anime where people are just like, isn't that just a bunch of porn? And
no,
it's
that's
like, there's a
hentai, Dad.
Well, which is so like all hentai is anime, but not all anime is hentai, right? Like,
Yeah,
right. So like, not all ASMR is porn stuff, but most of the porn stuff is ASMR. So like that's like the big thing in porn right now. So yeah,
I'm gonna take a bite of this wet ass pickle.
Why are you? Oh God,
that's from Mr. Mayor. It's just like this is my favorite joke about ASMR. Yeah, no, I don't know. All right, you know what it is? It's unboxing time. It's unboxing time here at the Say Report. Do you have your box, Sejohn?
I do. It's right here.
Yeah, this doesn't work as well as it could because we're not a video. But we'll throw up a photo. And I have been bursting with this. I'm very excited about this.
I haven't even cut into it. I don't know. I'm gonna move the mic a little bit so that I'm not like getting full on just like.
This is us climbing back up a little bit into happiness, though. I mean, I'm feeling better just getting all that off my chest, and just how we're feeling. And there's exciting stuff too, more exciting stuff than Sejohn doing an unboxing on the show.
So you told me that you also had a box and that we were going to open them together.
Yeah, I opened my box already. I'm sorry. I had to make sure that it.
After all the shit you gave me, don't open the box, Sejohn.
I didn't want. I'd make a Gwyneth Paltrow's head joke here, but she's in a whole line too.
Well, she's in the same shit she's always been in. Complete disconnect from what normal people do.
True, that's true. But like now it involves Moida or attempted Moida, so it feels oddly connected to everything else.
Yeah. I see yellow.
I bet you do see yellow. Yeah, no, I opened mine because I wanted to make sure that it looked good and that this wouldn't land like a lead balloon, even though it kind of is.
I see the words of the Say Report.
You do see the words of the Say Report.
Is this the nuclear football? What is this?
It's a tumbler. It's a 20-ounce tumbler that has our logo on this side.
Yeah, there's a second box I got to open.
Oh, there's a second box?
Well, the box it's in is all
okay.
taped up, so.
Well, you said you saw the logo. I thought that.
Well, yeah, there's a window on the box.
Understood. I opened the same thing. This is weird. I have to
why you're confused.
I have to vamp, Sejohn. I can't just let you be quiet opening a box. It's not a video.
Wow. So this is pretty.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
Why does it come with a heroin tie?
Is a straw. I get where you get heroin tie from, though.
It's a fucking flimsy ass rubber tube. I mean, like the tumbler looks great. I don't know if the straw.
I think the
Ooh,
straw
can
is
you-
rigid at one point, isn't it? It's just floppy in that one area. I don't know. I would never use. I don't like straws in general.
No, it's not
Oh,
rigid
okay.
anywhere. It's the tumbler's gorgeous.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous, right? I don't know. Someone a friend that we went to college with, she does like maker arts and everything, and she has a laser, and she said she wanted to try her hand at tumblers. So I asked if we could be one of the subjects.
That's awesome.
So now there are in existence 2 Say Report branded tumblers, and if you're interested in that, maybe we'll go forward with more of them. But yeah.
Oh, this is fantastic. The tumbler, like I said, the tumbler is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get some coffee in its stat.
Oh, wait, are you going to leave me here alone while you fill that with coffee?
No. I mean,
Okay,
after the
yeah.
show. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, yeah, so now you have it. I wanted it to be a surprise. I wanted to reveal it on the show with you. So put it through your paces this week, right? It's technically a prototype, I guess. So have some coffee in it, see what it is, and we'll report back next week.
I'll even try the straw. Maybe I'll come around to the floppy straw.
Don't use it to do heroin. I have to use the straw for something. I don't know.
Not
but it
big
was
enough for my big muscly arms.
probably good if you're like shooting it through between your toes.
Oh God.
But yeah, so that's something out there. There's a Tumblr, and we'll throw out photos. And I want to thank listeners of the show, Hab Guy and Mark, for keeping the secret, because I was busting with it. Because yeah, you know, it looks really good.
Yeah, I really like it.
Yeah. So that's it. So we did Tumblrs. I guess, is there anything else you want to talk about right now before I go into? I got 4s to talk about.
Let's do it, man.
Resident Evil 4 remake and John Wick 4.
Oh yeah, let's talk about all the good stuff.
All right, so where do you want to... You know, I'm going to do John Wick 4 first, because I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil the movie for you. Because one of the things that I was reminded of this week as I rewatched the first 3 John Wick films, and Flubber, which I'm working on a defense for it being sort of the John Wick 0 of it all, is not the case at all. I just watched John Wick and then 1997 Flubber, and then John Wick Chapter 2 and John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum in that order. Because before we go...
Why?
I don't know if you've watched any How I Met Your Father yet. Of season 2.
Of the new season?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've watched a couple of episodes.
So season 2A, it ends tomorrow. Tuesday, March 28th. You're listening to this on Monday, so yeah, so you're tomorrow. March 28th, it's 2 episodes are going to be airing. They're going to be the finale of season 2A, which is exciting. But there's been a semi-running joke in this first part of the season that Flubber is being made into a musical, which is all sorts of insane to me because, like, it's owned by Disney. Disney owns the show, and like the person that you're like poking fun at is Disney, and their incessant need to turn every one of their properties into a musical on Broadway.
Oh yeah, and we've never seen companies allow that shit to happen.
No, it's just like
Fox on The Simpsons, yeah,
right. But that's the thing is that like I feel like they tried to remove themselves from it so that like we're just poking fun at Disney, but it's just like Disney being like good.
Well, some people might say that this is kind of the insidious nature of this kind of shit, is that you're like, yeah, stick it to Disney, and like not realizing that Disney's the one getting your money while that shit gets said.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like,
That's
like there's definitely an insidious side to it to consider, but like I think it's probably more likely that it's just an all in good fun ribbing at your boss, which is something we see on TV all the time.
Oh yeah, it's what the TV is for. That's it.
I mean, like all of the Les Moonves jokes on 30 Rock and shit like that.
Yeah. Wait, was it Les Moonves or was it the other guy?
Well, and Lorne Michaels and everybody. Like,
yeah.
they poke fun at everybody on that show.
Well, they have to. That way they don't get in trouble for poking fun at the one guy. I don't know. I always think of Les Moonves as CBS, so that's why, like, the NBC show, it's kind of surprised me. But that's me. I apologize. But yeah, so they've been doing this Flubber musical bit, and we watched The Welcome Protocol, the latest episode, where Wendy Malick, love Wendy Malick, performed a song from it called My Heart Flubs for You. Oh my God. whatever.
My heart flubs for you. Okay. Yeah.
And based on the lyrics of My Heart Flubs for You, it sounds like the flubber is in love with Professor Brainerd in the musical, and like that's not what Flubber is about at all.
It's about a robot falling in love with him.
Well,
not
the
Flubber
1997
falling in love.
one, but even then, like going back as far as The Absent-Minded Professor and Son of Flubber, like Brainerd is always a human who's in a relationship.
Yeah.
So, like a love between the gelatinous green mixture and its creator. Like,
I'm just saying, you're weirded out that this thing is falling in love with his creator when that's literally a plot line in the 1997 movie.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing.
Flubber.
Is I'm like, yeah, so the anger to me is I'm like, this is making me angry because it's the robot that falls in love with the professor, not Flubber. And I said that statement in the living room, and my mother and father have seen the 97 Flubber, and so did Dale, but Dale was 3 years old, and she's like, that's not what happens in Flubber. And I'm like, no, it's exactly what happens in Flubber. And she says, I've never seen that movie then. And so I put on Flubber. At 11 o'clock at night, I put on Flubber because I wasn't going to let one more minute pass with Dale thinking she had never seen Flubber. And I learned a lot about Flubber. You know, I was going to talk about John Wick 4, but I knew Flubber was going to get in the way it does. You know the crazy thing about Flubber, Sejohn?
Man.
What?
It gets everywhere, man.
It gets everywhere. You can't get it out of, and it has a mambo that's written by the guy who does the music for the movie.
Oh my god!
I can't think of his name. It's not Hans Zimmer. It's Danny
Elfman.
Danny Elfman, yeah. So there's the Mambo de Flubber. It's a really weird. It's weird because like it's credited for Mambo de Flubber, and then the score is by the same person. So it's like, well, yeah, that's how that works.
Well, yeah, but if it's created as a single, the music industry.
The music industry is always weird about that stuff. But the really crazy thing about Flubber, when's the last time you watched Flubber from 1997?
I mean, not like extremely recently, but like, you know, it's one of those ones that shows up on like the ABC or Freeform. Yeah, like that network. It pops up on there from time to time. So, like, it's one of those ones that's been in the background while I've been at work and stuff like that. So I have like vague. I have like vague like images I can remember from Flubber, but I haven't really sat down and watched it since probably I was a kid.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's believable. Flubber is Home Alone 4.
Yeah.
Because 101 Dalmatians, as we all know, is Home Alone 3. And Home Alone 3 is actually Home Alone 5. Freaking John Hughes wrote it. So the whole thing in Flubber where Ted Levine, Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and Clancy Brown, the warden from Shawshank Redemption, I only bring that up because specifically they were cast as the Harry and Marv of Flubber because of those two roles. It'll be funny if we put some of the scariest villains from adult cinema into this fun kids comedy. Yeah, like they just are treated like the Wet Bandits because I don't know. There's a song out there called "Where Did the Gremlins Go?" I wish I knew the guy who wrote it or anything like that. But it's about why did we only get 2 Gremlins movies? And he talks about like how we could have had like Gremlins 7 instead. We got all sorts of this stuff. And that movie always goes through my head when I think about all of the movies that John Hughes wrote post Home Alone that are literally just Home Alone movies, but like with a Disney trapping. I was so blown away that I'm just like, this is just another Home Alone.
Well, I mean, you got to remember, like, when Home Alone hit, right? How hard it hit. Like, it was huge, right? And panned critically, but just money after money after money, like dollar after dollar coming in. Like it was just crazy. So it became kind of this thing for Hughes to kind of just shit out when he just wanted to make some extra cash. Like, that's why some of them are okay and some of them are not. Like,
I mean, it's why Disney went to him and they're like, look, we understand that you made some money with this Home Alone thing. Could you do it, but with 101 Dalmatians?
Could you do it, but with a little green blobbo?
Do you think you can make that work? I'm John Hughes. I can make it work. But it's just so crazy that, like, his 90s was writing Home Alone. I was so surprised. I was also surprised by Will Wheaton being in Flubber. And that he talks about how Robin Williams would do like the one where the director like told him to do it, and then they would do one where he just like improv. And I'm like, that's really cool trivia, Will Wheaton. Thanks for sharing that. And then I think back to the movie, I'm like, there are 2 scenes that Will Wheaton is in with Robin Williams. So like, it's not like he's in a bunch of scenes. It's like, it happened 2 times that I was there. And Christopher McDonald, like the craziest thing about Flubber, right? Especially when you think about like bedtime stories from the Adam Sandler cinematic universe. And we talked about how it was just like combining everything that sort of worked into that film.
Yeah.
Like Flubber feels like that too. It's like,
yeah.
oh, Robin
man.
Williams
It's
is the
Disney,
genie. Let's
one
throw
of
it
the
in.
Disney machine. Yeah. It's one of the Disney machine movies. Like there's certain movies that Disney puts out on a semi-regular basis that are just like, oh, we've got a free period in our schedule. Well, let's pop a script out of the Scriptomatic over there and then see what comes out. It's just John Hughes in a cardboard box, but like they go over to the Scriptomatic and they get handed
Adam
a script.
Sandler makes Flubber and uses it to win a basketball game.
Yeah, exactly.
Name. Yeah, it was so that, and then like Jodie Benson is the robot that falls in love with Robin Williams.
You know what's even crazier is they took that character and used it as the like not host, what's the right word here, but like when you went to one of the 4D experiences in Disney, Weibo or Weeby or whatever its name is, right? Like Weibo, yeah.
Because
like,
then her daughter is Weebette.
Right.
It's just like,
but they used Weibo as like a guide in one of those like 4D experiences. Like they like leaned into that.
They
character
leaned
as,
into,
like,
well, yeah, because it's Jodie Benson. It's the Little Mermaid. Yeah. She's like the voice of Disney in the 90s.
Yeah.
To the fact that like it's so weird in Enchanted, and I love it in Enchanted, that she actually gets to play in a Disney film as a live action character.
Yeah.
Because she's what's his name's secretary, McDreamy there, Patrick Dempsey. Yeah, it would just
fucking just a side note on McDreamy. Did you hear that Grey's Anatomy got renewed again?
It's not surprising. I watched an episode of Grey's Anatomy yesterday with my father, and I'm just like, I can't believe that this show has been on since I graduated high school.
20 years, man.
Like, it's just
crazy.
Holy shit. Like, holy crap. And it was about like I don't even know. And Kate Walsh was back on, and he's like, come on, Kate Walsh is in it. Watch it with me while we eat lunch. And I'm like,
I haven't watched since the ghost of Denny disappeared. So
I've never watched the show. I don't watch the show. But it's like, my father's like, yeah, no, watch it while we're eating lunch. It'll be nice. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, Kate Walsh. And I'm like, okay, I know who that is, but like, I'm not a fan of Grey's Anatomy. But that show, like, it doesn't even take place in the hospital anymore. And Grey is gone. Meredith Grey is gone. How is it called Grey's Anatomy? I don't know. It was a fun time. It was fun to eat my spicy chicken fries and watch Grey's Anatomy, though. Have you had the spicy chicken fries?
No, but I did have the spicy McChicken, the official new McDonald's not new sandwich.
It's the remix to Ignition, hot and fresh out the kitchen, hot and spicy McChicken. Mama rolling that body. I'm so sorry. So I watched Flubber in between rewatching all the John Wick movies, because here's the thing about John Wick and the movies is the first movie I saw about 100 times in theaters. It's 4 times. It was actually just 4 times, but I saw it the first time with Dale, and I loved it. I fell in love with it. And then later on that day, a friend was like, John Wick, not much plot in that, huh? And I dragged him to go see the movie, and then I talked about all of the plot that is there, even though it's just like kind of a thin, inciting event. And he was blown away. He's just like, wow, I'm like, oh yeah, this movie really connected with me. And then I saw it.
Also, keep in mind that, like, especially with the very first one, when they get into the later movies, they definitely flesh out the world more. But like, the first one really is just like a proof of concept for the stunts shit. Like the guys that created it, like the whole point was we wanted to put together a character in a movie where we could do this kind of scene work because we feel like it's not being done this way or not being done properly in other movies. You know, things like making sure that the bullet counts make sense, making sure that like the hits are landing in the right way and that people are behaving in you know, not like flying 20 feet backwards when they get punched. Like they purposely designed that movie around the fight and the fight choreography first and then applied a story to it. So like it's that thing that you got to remember when you go and see things. Like, is this a movie that focused on spectacle? Is it a movie that focused on story, on character? Like, what is the thing that this movie is aiming for? And people automatically see a movie that focuses on spectacle and think, well, that must have no value. And it's just like, no, no, it has value. You are looking for value in the wrong place. So by saying it has a thin plot, sure, but that's not really the point of that movie.
But I would also argue, and I made the argument, and I sold my friend. That was my friend Eric. I'll give him. He'd probably like hearing his name on the show. I sold him on the fact that like it might not have it has pretty deep world building and connotations and themes that it's exploring, even though clearly it was made based on the spectacle first. That first movie still tells a really powerful story about loss and grieving.
Sure. There is a plot there. It's just that you'd be forgiven if you'd only ever seen the first one and thought, John Wick, that's the movie that's about the guy that fights.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like there's definitely a story there, but that's not the first thing in line, right? And like later movies bring that out. Also, what that first movie does is it introduces a lot of ideas with no context, and that would be really cool to have context, but like it's not like when they made like 3 and they were like, well, we know we're gonna make 4, so let's set some stuff up. Like they didn't know if they were gonna get any more movies. There's a lot of stuff that just gets introduced just because it looks cool that then they have to go in later
then they have to go into
justification.
Oh man,
like, which is
after you see the 4th movie, I have a theory based on what they had to build on the grand story of John Wick at the end of it. I don't want to ruin it for you, but like you got to see the 4th movie, then we could talk about it. But like talk about concepts, the coins, the currency. Like it was more 2 going into 3 because the original plan was it'll be a trilogy, and then when 2 did really well, and they're like, we know we're writing the 3rd one, they're like, we should probably start on the 4th one. But 2 leading into 3 the way that it does is really, really cool. And then, like, people were surprised when John Wick Chapter 4, I'm like, they said they were going to make it so long ago. What are you talking about? This isn't like The Matrix 4 when they said we're finally doing a 4th Matrix movie. But the 4th movie was really, really good. Hopefully spoiler-free little review on it. Go see it if you can. I'm glad that I decided I wanted to go see it in theaters, even though I fucking hate going to the movie theater. The chair is just so uncomfortable, and like it took me about half the movie to find a place where I was comfortable and then watch the rest of the movie, and that kind of sucked. I will be honest about that. But moving that aside, I'm glad that I saw it, and a lot of people are throwing criticism at John Wick 4 because it's so long. I will praise John Wick 4 for how long it is.
Yeah,
because
that's an interesting complaint.
Yeah.
I mean, like, are they saying that it's not holding their attention for that long, or?
No, I mean, it's people who haven't seen it and they're like, oh, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes long. And it's just like, yeah, okay, thank you for that. And then, like, it's not made better by the fact that all of the movie theaters that I have checked clock it at 3 hours or longer because they now include, you know, trailers and everything like that. Like, you're going to be in the auditorium for 3 hours is what that's telling you.
Yeah, so, and that, to be fair, is something that people have probably been really on their ass about. I know that I have often complained about the fact that, like, you see that it's an hour and 40-minute movie, but that doesn't include the half an hour of commercials and stuff beforehand. So, like, you can't bank on that being...
You can't make plans around it. Yeah.
Right.
So now that they do that, so then people see John Wick 4 3 hours and they're like, it's 3 hours? It's just the guy with the gun, right? Like what you said, right? You go back to that very thin description of what the John Wick universe is. Even though it's the 4th movie, and if you've seen it, you've hopefully seen the other films in the series. I don't know. But what I will say, and why I will praise John Wick 4 for its length, is it is very distinctly 2 movies. It is very, very distinctly two movies. And rather than Deathly Hallows it and do it as two parts, they're just like, we're just going to put it all into this movie. And people are either going to deal with it or not deal with it. But it's like, having watched all of the John Wick films leading up to watching the fourth movie, I'm like, oh, this is where the movie would end. I know it's not going to end because there's no way that 2.5 hours have gone by right now. But
Right.
like, this is where the John Wick movie would end. And then you'd come back and you'd see this next movie. And I'm glad that they didn't do that. And I think that's all I want to say about on the movie until you get a chance to see it, Sejohn. And I know that that might be wild down the line. Because even like John Wick, we didn't see until you came back to visit for Christmas. And I dragged you to the Dirt Theater to see it. Because you're like, no, the dog. And I'm like, I know the dog, but shut up. You're going to love the movie.
That was always my thing with the first movie, and
Yeah.
still is to this day. Is it's like, it's not that I don't love everything else that's going on here. I personally have such a hard time with that exact kind of thing, and it's just like I don't know if I get by that.
No, and I
You know,
understand.
we win, and
Yeah, we had a great time. Then we ended up going to the tavern at the basement of Greg's. Local references for the win. And just having a great time. But here's the thing, right? I've watched that movie as many times as I have, and it was just this viewing. Spoilers for the first John Wick, a now 9-year-old movie, right? Because 2014, the first movie, right? The dog, right, that you see get hurt, like she in pain walked over to John Wick. I never got that until this viewing of the first movie. Because, like, there's the little blood trail of her going over to him so that she can be with him because she knows that he's hurt.
yeah,
And it, like, it really was just like, oh, shit. Because the whole point of the dog, talking about John Wick, again, if you haven't seen John Wick, go see John Wick. Sorry for the spoilers. Is, like, he's given that dog so he can have something to love. And we only see a brief time with him with the dog. But, like, in that brief time, we see that the dog also loved him. So, like, it is a real fucking loss. It's not just these fucking guys killed my dog.
There is also the context of where the dog comes from. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's that stuff too, but it is that
the dog also represents the fact that he lost his. Are they married? I don't know.
They're
if it's
married.
even,
I believe they're
Yeah, so he loses his wife. His wife is the one that leaves the dog for him because she realizes that she's on her way out, and so like there's so much weight put onto that moment that is not just what you see in that moment. So yeah, I mean, like I was saying, it's an extremely heavy fucking thing that movie starts out with, and it's really, really heavy.
But yeah, like, I just never saw him. Like, oh, the dog loved him. The dog, even though it was hurt, went to go tend to John Wick, who was also hurt. And it's just like, oh my God, my heart. Like, it was already the heart, the fact that, like, the dog his wife left him on her deathbed is now gone. A connection to his wife is gone. But, like, also, he had made a new connection with the dog.
Yes, yeah.
And
that's why it becomes important that he then always ends up rescuing every fucking dog he sees.
Yes. And then them playing with the fact that, like, oh, we killed the dog in the first one. Are we going to kill another dog? Is this dog going to die?
It's a really weird, it's a really weird marketing ploy to be like, every preview they show another dog for a second because they know that everybody out there is like, fuck, are they going to kill this one?
Oh my God, is that dog going to die? It is so in my head, right? So John Wick 4 is very enjoyable. If you're a fan of the series, it does not feel like 2.5 hours. I will say that. Like, it clipped by. It has an amazing pace. It is a fitting end to the story if this is going to be the end of it. Like, if they're like, we're not doing any more John Wick movies, I'm pretty happy with everything that happened in that movie. So I will say that.
Yeah, but they fleshed the world out enough now, I will say, and in counter to what goes on in the first movie, where I feel like there's a lot of really thin, just like hints at cool shit that they then have to like figure out how to add some meat to later on. They do such a good job of that if you were to tell me they were going to do a movie like in the world of John Wick, but it wasn't about John, like, yeah, like I'd totally be down on that.
Well, they are doing that. It's called Sisu. Have you seen any of the trailers for it? Like, it is not. it's in the past. It happens during World War II, but it's by the guys who do John
know
Wick.
that they were supposed to be doing the spin-off with the female character there from 3, weren't they?
Halle
I don't know if
Berry's
that's still
character.
happening.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's why people were surprised to hear that John Wick 4 was actually going to happen. And then again, the third movie, people were sharing the text messages that they got if they bought their tickets online, or the emails they got. Because once you went to go see the movie, you'd get, like, in the John Wick sort of thing, the ticket with the release date of May 2021. John Wick 4 is coming May 2021.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, they were off. So it's cool that it's finally here. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. But it's gotten in my head, because the other 4 that I've been experimenting with and experiencing this weekend is Resident Evil 4 Remake, which I am very sad to report at this time I have not yet finished.
Oh, that's but just for folks at home, like, where are you at? Like, can you give us an idea of like what you're up to at the moment?
I killed that little hamburger boy.
Okay.
I guess that's what I can say. I mean, I've been calling them hamburger boys because I guess, well, it's the toy store mascot, right? In Resident Evil 3 Remake, that kind of looks like the Bob's Big Boy figure, and you got to find the little statues of him. So there are Clockwork Castilian of the little guy, Ramon, I think is his name. And so I've been calling them hamburger boys, to the fact that I knew there. Here's why I haven't finished Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Okay.
There's 2 reasons. One, my friggin' Friday got derailed with the whole John Wick of it all and getting an oil change for my car. Like, I didn't just dedicate Friday to Resident Evil 4. I tried to have it all. And it turns out I couldn't have it all because of Resident Evil 4. Just was not having it. But once everybody was asleep and it was like midnight, I went to go try to play it.
And you got too scared, huh?
No, I wish.
Was it scary? You were scared.
I was not scared.
Scary, so
I was scared last night. I will tell the story of last night playing the game, walking around. Oh my god, I don't even know like I couldn't even tell you what section of the game I was in. But like there are bugs in this game. I don't know if bugs are in the original, but there's like a whole bug section. It was not the bug section. If it were the bug section, I could have explained what happened last night a lot better than what. And I don't mean like the Plaga heads or anything like that. I mean like legitimately there are now bugs.
Yeah.
And are they in the original game?
I remember bugs, but they could have been something that came in like 5 or 6, and I'm just like transplanting them into 4. But bugs in this universe are not weird. So
not weird. It's weird because they act like zombies.
Right. Yeah.
Like where they're like, oh, you shot me, and now I'm up on 2 legs and staggered, and I'm just like,
yeah. They like,
what the fuck is happening here? And it was.
Did you have a Kafka-esque nightmare?
No,
like, what
I didn't
happened?
have a Kafka-esque nightmare. What happened was I was playing the game. I had my headphones on. I'm super immersed in it, and it's like a moment where like you're walking through and you're like trying to be quiet. You're like stealthy Leon S. Kennedy. Like I'm in the castle, so I'm not in the village. I'm in the castle, and I think it was immediately following the Rose Maze section of the game, and Ruby, the cat, the cat in the house. I did not know that she had been in the dining room with me where I'm playing the game. So she ran out from under the table and just the whole length of her body went by my leg.
Oh no.
I screamed bloody fucking murder.
One of the colmillos or whatever the dogs are.
It like maybe I thought it was one of the dogs. That was the whole thing that I was going to use as my segue. Is I killed the first one of those dogs, and I'm like, I really hope that wasn't John Wick's dog, because like John Wick way scarier than any of the Plaga or the infected in that game. Let's just be straight about it. But yeah, I just happened, and I just like, it totally like. So I have to give it credit, because the biggest issue that I've had with the original Resident Evil 4 is that the control scheme never allowed me to feel immersed in the game.
Right.
Like that was always the thing. The fact that it's like transition from moving to standing still, being able to shoot, like that transition was always this moment where I was pulled out of the game. And I'll admit that. That is not that by the very fact that an outside factor happening in the world got that reaction from me means that I am feeling more immersed in this. It is the same thing because I'm playing in a dark room. I have a candle going, and then I have like twinkle lights behind me. So
the sexy
like
music. Yeah,
there's
I
no
get
sexy music. Hey Leon. No. Sorry. When other people like turn on lights in the house, like my first thing is like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that? Like, I'm in it. But what I will say is, so midnight on Friday, so going into Saturday, because I ended up saying I'm not going to try to stay up till midnight and then play through the night. That always ends up with me like tired around like 3 o'clock.
Surprise, right.
Which makes sense. So I went to bed at 10. Like the first time I started to feel tired, I'm like, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to be responsible. And then when I wake up, rather than be like, oh, I don't need to be up till 6 o'clock to go to work, I will get out of bed and I will start playing the game. Turned out that was 3 o'clock. So I played from 3 until 5:30 because I needed just a little bit of a break. And I watched MSNBC. Up Way Too Early is the name of the show. Which like he's in Washington D.C. I don't think 5:30 is way too early.
I think he's talking to you.
that could be fair. I mean, it's 2 a.m. on the West Coast, and that'd be being up way too early. Anywho, so I got up at 3. I played until 10 o'clock, where I drove my car to the body shop, and then we saw John Wick at 11, and then. My car was a little bit delayed, so I had to wait to go get that, and I didn't end up getting to play again until about midnight going into Saturday. And the section I was doing on midnight going into Saturday was, I was on the lake, and I had to go find, like, 2 heads to get the key to the church. Now, that feels new to the game. That did not feel like something that I've seen before. Like, you're on a boat and you gotta, like, ride around the lake. I'd already fought the lake monster.
Yeah, no, but you had to find the heads for the church.
For the church, right? So, yeah, so I doing that. The lake was so dark. And I'm just like, this is kind of cool. Like, I'm kind of enjoying it. Because, it is. It's pitch dark at night. It would be this dark in the middle of nowhere, right? There's no ambient light or anything like that. But then, moving forward into the game, once I got into the church, it was just as dark. And I'm like, all right, so this feels a little strange because usually if it were this dark, Leon would have his flashlight out. Like, why doesn't he have his flashlight out? And it was making me so tired to try to, like, interact with the game because it was basically just a black screen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I'm really tired. I'm going to take a break. Like, maybe it's because it's nighttime here. Like, I'm in the dark too. I'm going to take I got to the church. I just saved Ashley. So I'm going to take a break. I'll take some sleep. I'll wake up. I'll see what's going forward. So I go back again and it's really dark. So I finally turned to the internet and I'm just like, is there an issue with the lighting in Resident Evil 4? Right? Because I know there had been the whole rain thing, and the rain didn't look good, but they had touted how they had fixed it. But the rain during the lake had been kind of off. And I found this whole thing about like, oh yeah, no, the HDR settings completely fucked for Resident Evil 4 right now.
Man.
So really interesting. And I went through and I found they're like, yeah, they're messed up, and it felt that way because, like the setup where you set the whole thing up and it's like, make it so that the image is just barely visible. It didn't matter if I was at the top brightness or the lowest darkness. There was no symbol at all. Yeah. So I'm just like, that seems weird.
What happens when you turn HDR off, or can you not do that?
So you can turn HDR off and then you have a brightness setting and all of that other stuff. But the HDR settings, right? Like, I want to use it, right? I have the high dynamic range. I have the monitor that does it. People have figured out, like, how to adjust it so that you can get, like, the visuals that they want. I don't know if, like, someone from Capcom went out, but it is an issue with the game. So it's like 2 off of the darkest setting should be your brightness, and then 2 offset towards blue in the blue-red spectrum will give the game its proper colors. If you're on PC, they also say to use the REC 709. On PlayStation, it's REC 2020. So I'm stuck to that if I have HDR on.
Stumbling around the lake looking for chimera heads. Like
it was cool, kinda. Well, the chimera heads were in the castle.
So when you said you were collecting the heads for the door to get into the church, you need the chimera heads to get into the church. Is that the puzzle you were talking about?
So I think they moved the puzzle, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And it would actually make sense because the chimera puzzle, spoilers for Resident Evil 4 Remake, like everything that we've talked about now is that this is actually feels like a change because I got to play as Ashley, which was interesting. Actually, it was like really interesting in terms of we changed something about this game. When you get into the Grand Hall is the Chimera Head thing. So you go down like one hall, you solve a puzzle, you get the snake, you get the goat, you get the lion. And then when Leon puts them all on, he gets stuck in a cage. Like it was a trap for him. So Ashley's like outside of the cage. She's like, I'll get you out. So then there's like a cool cinematic of him fighting off zombies while in this tiny little cage. Because they're like trying to throw weapons at him or whatever. And then Ashley runs off and tries to free him. And it's real cool. Like it was real cool because she had like a lantern that could freeze the enemies. It was interesting. It was an interesting section. But no, the thing about the heads to get into the church is you go into a cave in this one and there's a mural, and set in the middle of the mural is the key to open up the church door. Which I thought that was like 3 jewels in the original game. I haven't played the original in a really long time. I don't really like the original.
Yeah, the Ashley stuff is in the original one as well, but it sounds like what you're saying is they really improved it, because I will say that it was probably one of the more hated on sections.
No, it was really cool. Like I was surprised at how enjoyable it was, because I know that people don't like that. I've heard people talking about that, and I don't know. I remember the really cool thing was remembering moments, because everybody around me played the original game, and so like when you get to the courtyard and Ashley is taken over by the parasite, and then it runs her behind a gate. I'm like, oh, I remember seeing this back in like 2006.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna be the one to save her. It'll be fun. Yeah, so, like, it's been really cool. But, yeah, so you go into it's called the Cave of Murals. There's the mural with the thing. And then there are 2 hands that are outstretched. And then, like, on the mural, it shows where the parts that go in those hands are. And it's the head of the apostle and the head of the damned.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, that whole thing. Yeah, the Chimera was later on. And I liked how they did that whole thing of it. I don't know. I mean, I'm enjoying it. But that darkness thing, like just not being able to see the game and then reading that, like, there's an issue with it right now. This is how you should set it if you want it to work well, was interesting. But like it got to that point where I'm like, I can't see, and I don't want to just turn up the brightness. Is there an issue here? And lo and behold, there is.
Oh yeah, good thing to know. I wonder if this is something they can fix via a patch, or if this is just going to have to be the way this game is. That sucks.
Well, the game is plummeting in price on PC and Xbox. Like it's down to $40.
Really?
Yeah. It was a $60 game. Kudos to Capcom for that. Then $70 for the deluxe edition, which was like extra trinkets and everything.
Is it just because they're just focusing on PlayStation, or like that's just?
I don't know.
That's
I don't
wild.
know. Like the price, I saw it for $46 on Friday, and it was like through like G2G or something like that. It was through one of those like semi-consolidation things. I'm like, that must just be a thing. But then this morning, people were talking about that like the price is going down. The lowest I've seen it for is $40, and people are reporting lower than that.
So Xbox is still selling it for $60 on their website, and GameStop is still selling it for $60.
Right, but
Xbox, but
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm still seeing it $60 everywhere. I'm not even seeing any sales. Amazon has like a $30 version, but if you click on it, it's the GameCube version that somebody has just priced under the Xbox listing.
That makes sense because people are jerks. I don't know. I definitely saw it for $46, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't be able to play it on my PC anymore. My PC would not be able to play
I'm not. I don't know about the PC version. Yeah, that. I mean, the thing about that is that there's so many different markets on PC.
Yeah.
That you end up with a lot of. It's part of the reason why people always joke about Steam sales being ridiculous. But the reason that they do that so often is so that you're still going through them, because those games go on sale a million times over in so many other different stores that they need you to keep coming back through them.
We need you to stay on our platform. Yeah. I don't know. So I think that one that was 46 was PC download or Xbox, and it might have been through like Green Man or something like that. But I was just like, I'm okay. I wanted to play it on PlayStation. Plus, I got it the PS4 version, and I know I'm gonna play it on PS4 too, because I like to compare the two versions.
Yeah.
Plus, extra trophies. I don't know if I will though. Like, this is probably going to be the end of my... That's so weird to say. It's so weird to say that, like, Resident Evil 4 feels like this is where I'm going to stop playing Resident Evil games.
Well, because you don't know what's going to happen. When Resident Evil 9 comes out, I'm sure there will be some hook to that one, you know?
Yeah.
I would say maybe I'm not interested in any more remakes after this, right? Like, we got 2, 3, and 4. We basically got Leon's adventures, and, like, 3 is kind of like the Timon and Pumbaa
Lion King 1.5.
Yeah, Lion King 1.5 adventure, right?
Yeah.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yeah.
But that idea being that like I don't see them bothering to touch 5 or 6, right? And
yeah.
1 could potentially have something really interesting, but that would be such a big deal that I wouldn't lump it in with these, right? Like they would probably I'd be very curious to see them do 1 and like do it in like a first person style a la 7 and 8, right? Like that would be awesome. Like if they're gonna do 1, I want them to do something ridiculous with it.
I would still do Code Veronica too. Like I say that I wouldn't play another one.
It's harsh. It's not harsh. It's hard to determine where Capcom feels that one falls. In most official listings from Capcom, that's not considered a mainline game.
Right. And that makes sense, but like
so I don't know if they would ever touch it again. Like they've kind of abandoned all of those games. Like what were the Game Boy ones that they had put out, Survivor and like stuff like that. Like they've kind of let a lot of the Biohazard games, because like there's more spin-offs than we even really ever got in America. I think there's like 2 or 3 that were Japan exclusives, but like there's more spin-offs than we know, and Capcom doesn't really pay much credence to them because none of them were hugely successful. Code Veronica is the most successful out of them, but even then I don't think it's considered to be like top tier, and since they don't consider it mainline and it didn't really have enough behind it before, I don't know if we'll ever see it. Maybe I could be wrong. It'd be awesome that if they decided to start dipping into those older ones and those older like weird spin-offs and putting those out. But
the only reason I want Code Veronica is because of Claire. And Claire is still one of their like money-making characters.
Yeah.
You have Dead Island. I think it's called Dead Island or Island of the Dead, so that it doesn't infringe on the copyright of Dead Island. The new movie that like they just showed a trailer of, and it's Claire and Leon again, and like of course like they're the couple, they're the it couple of Resident Evil, as far as I'm concerned. I could be wrong on that. Some people probably Leon and Ada Wong.
Well, and like it used to be Jill and Chris, but they've done so much in that world with Jill and Chris having their own stories, that especially Chris, that story that fan, well, what's the slash fiction, what's the word there,
that shipping
thank you. Yeah. That's the term from 10 years ago that nobody uses anymore that I was trying to reference. Thank you.
So
that seems to have ended. So
it is what it is, but because it's Claire and it's her story, a lot of Code Veronica, again, like I only played it briefly at any time, so I don't know. Like I'd like to see more of her, and because she was
Veronica's story is so fucked up too, because that's the one with like the twins, and then you find out that like one of them has been just infected the whole time. Oh man, it's a fucking weird ass story.
Yeah,
it you end up in the like winter base and all that.
Yeah,
shit.
You go to Antarctica. No, you go to the Arctic. Like it's like cool stuff. But it seems like that. But this game, what I am experiencing with Resident Evil 4, as much as I'm enjoying it, what I liked about the first Resident Evil, like when I rented Resident Evil 2 Remake, which is, it's so crazy to think that like I rented that game from Redbox for $3, beat it in a night and was like, well, I need to own you, right? So then I bought it, and then it became sort of my life for a brief moment in time. And then I did the same thing with 3, and then I'm like, well, I have 7. They gave it to me when I bought my PS5. I guess I'll finally give that one a try. And I loved Resident Evil 7. Like, I did not expect to enjoy that one as much as I did. And then 8 had the same problem that I'm experiencing with Resident Evil 4 Remake. In the fact that, like, it's getting a little long, guys.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
once
well,
you get to a certain length, it feels not the claustrophobia of like 2, 3, and 7 is what makes me enjoy the games.
Yeah.
Because you do feel like you're trapped a little bit, right? So like I'm in more of a survival mindset in those games as opposed to it's this huge sweeping epic. But then also the type of games I like are games that I can beat relatively quickly and then play again. I'm not clamoring to replay Resident Evil 4 right now.
Yeah, the open country horror that they're referencing that are things like Wicker Man and stuff like that are just not clicking for you in the same way that some of the stuff in 2 and 3 and 7 were.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. I don't know. It just feels too open. Like, I can't imagine I'm going to finish Resident Evil 4 and be like, oh, I'm ready to jump back in and do that again. Because as much as there are these moments that are just hyper immersive and I'm in it, there are other moments where I'm like, man, I do not want to play this section of the game again. Like, I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm very curious to see how you feel about things once 9 inevitably comes along, because you know it's coming with everything that's been. It's just they've been firing on all cylinders. But I do think it's going to be a while till we see 9, at least 3 years. You know, maybe they'll have some surprise announcement at the end of this year, and we'll see it in the next 2 years. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think that they're going to take their time with a 9, with the ways that they've kind of wrapped up 8 now and all that. Especially with the Rose. What's the daughter's name? The Rose DLC that they put out. So like the ways in which like they've kind of really wrapped that world up, but like really left the door open for more stories in the universe, obviously, which is what they've always done. I feel like they're going to take their time with 9, and they seem to have, what they've been doing was taking their time on the mainline ones and then filling the gaps with these re-releases, and I think they've run out of those as well, is what I'm getting at. You know, my fingers are crossed that we see a 1 re-release sometime in the next couple of years, and it's got some major hook to it, like moving into first person or something like that. But you know, generally, I don't really think they're going to touch 1 just because it's kind of a sacred cow, and like I don't think they're going to touch any of the spin-offs because I don't think they're worth it. But you know, like maybe we'll see another Revelations chapter or something, or maybe
Did Zero come out before or after 4? Was 0 the proof of concept for a Resident Evil game works on GameCube, or did 4 come out and then people were so hungry for Resident Evil that they did the remakes of the first 3 games and then gave this Resident Evil 0?
So 2002, November of 2002 is RE0, and then RE4.
I think it's 2003.
Let me ask specifically for the GameCube release date. 2005.
Okay.
January of 2005, so it's a couple of years later. So
yeah. So the time for 0 has passed as well, as much as like, and that sort of exists in the same space as Code Veronica in my mind, where like it's something after the fact. So I mean, I think the next place that they would go if they were going to remake is probably RE5, and that just seems like RE4 seems like a whole kettle of fish too. What it reminds me the most of, this version of it, is Uncharted. And the big, like, levy against Uncharted is that it's white guy Nathan Drake fighting all of these minorities. And just the way that they have put, like, the chapters in Resident Evil 4, how it comes up. I'm like, this just feels like an Uncharted game. So then it really is just kind of opening up the fact that, like, it is Leon S. Kennedy and it is Ashley Graham kind of poking fun at this foreign land that they don't fully
the Romani
understand.
is essentially it's like this Northern European like Slavic nation that they were just like it's not great. I mean, it's not, like we are not going to be able to ever crack the fucking nut on like the ways in which Japan really toes the line when it comes to these kinds of representation issues.
Yeah.
Like, because they have their own history and it's not our history, so we're never going to quite understand it, but it doesn't mean that everything that comes out should get a pass.
Shouldn't get a pass.
Like,
yeah, exactly. It's just I'm like, this is fun, but then like when they say something and I'm like, oh, like that's real language. Like, it's not like goofy plague monsters language. Like, those are real words that they're saying.
This is the one with what's his nuts, right? That's your like frenemy the whole time in the frilly shirt, right?
Luis.
Yeah, is it Luis? Is that his name?
Yeah.
That's it's not great. I don't know, man.
I maybe I'm not paying attention, but I feel like there are gaps in the story that I'm just missing. Because
that's interesting, because it is considered one of the tighter, better stories of Resident Evil games. I'm not saying you're not wrong. I'm not saying you are wrong. I just am curious to hear what those gaps are and what might be missing. So versus they also do that thing that all Resident Evil games do, where they just like they say shit and you're just like, sure, yeah, okay, that's a fact, I guess, in this world. It's like where are your green herbs, and it's just like, who the fuck? And then you find a green herbs heal you, and you're just like, oh, okay. Like, it's, and they apply that to the stories sometimes as well. That same video game logic of just, no, this is just the way that it works.
Yeah, this is the first time you're finding out about it, but Leon knew.
Yeah.
Leon knew this, but like that's what it feels like when I say gap. The only real gap in the game is I don't know where I got the Way Shrine key. I don't know when I collected it, but lo and behold, I had the Way Shrine key at some point, and I'm just like, that is because I was too tired playing this game. That's just the fact of it. I don't know when I picked up this item, but I'm gonna use this item to collect everything that I can. Yeah, like, and I know that's me being just completely honest with it. But then it's other things where like Leon is talking to Louise at the beginning of, I think it was like chapter 11, and he's like, so I know you used to work for Umbrella, and I'm like, does he know that? When was that revealed? When did that happen?
That who used to work for Umbrella? Wait, say that again. Oh, Louise says that about Leon?
Leon says it to Louise. And I'm like,
wait, Louise worked for
Umbrella? When did that happen? And I'm just like, maybe that Ada Wong scene? Because the first scene where like Ada Wong was prominently displayed, I'm like, it's weird that she looks different. Because it's been 6 years and like she had a model in RE2. So like she looks very different in this. And I'm like, which on some level, maybe it's for better representation or anything like that. Like, I don't want to like dog on it, but it also like, it's uncanny valley. I'm not going to be one of these people on Twitter being like, oh, they made Ashley and Ada ugly. That's not how I feel at all. But Ada does not look like the same person from the Raccoon City incident 6 years ago. Leon looks like the same person.
Yeah.
And it's not just
last
like,
time we saw Ada, she was supposedly dead, right?
Yeah, that's
also supposed to be like a big thing. Is like, what the fuck is going on? Is Ada? How is Ada here? Right?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm going to answer it. Like how are you here? Like, that was a good little moment. Like, I'm on the island now, and I know about Krauser, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this whole thing happens. And I guess it does happen from nowhere, because it always felt like it happened from nowhere, but I thought it was just because I didn't watch a friend play that level, and it's just like, no, like halfway through, you're just like, oh no, my training guy.
Yeah.
He's the ultimate bad guy. So I mean, I'm bummed that I didn't get through it. I've had fun with it. But again, it is like, I'm like, I don't know. Here's what it's going to take for me to go right back into the game. Something with infinite ammo. And that's really, like, this game I think is interesting because the first two games that I played, right, 2 and 3, I never really had ammo issues. Like, if anything, I had a surplus of ammo near the end of it because, like, I knew that ammo would be something I needed to prioritize.
Right.
I right now only have ammo for my handgun.
Are you crafting?
I am
or anything
crafting,
like-
yeah.
Okay.
It's just like the situations that I find myself in where I'm just like, I just need to use everything. Like the two Wolverine guys, I'm just like, if I don't use every weapon at my at my disposal, I'm not going to be able to defeat them.
I mean, as long as you're using environmental shit and all that
Oh,
as
yeah.
much as you can, like, then you're doing it. You're doing what you can.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I think what you're just talking about is just more balance towards the horror aspect.
Which is
I think 3, if I remember correctly, like Nemesis cut so much shit back in the day because people were like, it's not scary anymore. It's just an action movie. I've just got guns and I'm just taking out like not zombies. Like they're nothing. So like. I think it's a response to that is like I feel like we were getting too much ammo in 2 and 3 to the point where we started to kind of lose that scare factor of like resource management, and so 4 is correcting, and maybe for you it's overcorrecting. It could be what's happening, but I think that's probably most likely what's happening.
Yeah, I just wish I could. If I could buy ammo, it wouldn't matter. I can buy crafting materials, and I've figured it out. But it's like huge boss fights, and I'm like, all of my resources are gone because I had to beat that boss. Like, it doesn't... Like, I still beat it with only handgun. I used all my other stuff, and then thank God that they gave me extra handgun ammo. I don't know. And then there's also, like, added challenges, so I'm doing all of those, too. Like, there's a Merciless Knight that I could kill to get spindels, which are the new way that you, like, trade for items. Because it's not like you shoot the blue medallions and you just get the gun the way that you did in the first game, the original game. The first game is really hard to do it. Because, like, I've done that one, but now those blue medallions give you, like, tokens that can then be traded in and redeemed for whatever you want, not just the gun.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Because I'm sitting on like 30 of those because I'm like, I don't know what I want. Like, none of this stuff is actually appealing to me. But you know what? I could buy 6 things of gunpowder, which would be ammo, and I wouldn't be having this problem. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm glad to know the story. And then there was the other thing where I'm like, wow, Ashley was really impressed that I just shot that thing. That seemed weird. And then I realized, oh, I should have the sniper rifle, but I'm just like, I'm not buying the sniper rifle. That's too expensive, and I don't like using them in games. So the fact that I did take what should have been done with a sniper rifle and do it with a pistol, it's kind of nice that Resident Evil was like, Ashley's going to give you an attaboy for that.
Nice. Good, man. I'm glad that you are finding some enjoyment in it. I was kind of worried that this was going to be the one that was going to like completely break the bank for you. But I'm not surprised to hear that you feel like you need a break from these games. I kind of think that we're hitting that point with these. Apparently, that's just like the next big lesson in pop culture, right? Is that we've got to learn when to let off the gas for a little bit. Maybe with all of the stuff we've talked about today, it could all be resolved with just a little bit of a break, both on my part personally, but also maybe on the part of Disney and Warner Brothers,
the creators and everything. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I guess the crazy thing about Resident Evil 4, and this is the last thing, and I just noticed it on my desk, so that's why it's coming across, is it feels like Devil May Cry with just all of the enemies that they are introducing.
Well, Devil May Cry was a Resident Evil game when it started, and
yeah,
so I'm sure that you do have a lot of the same conceptual goals that they're trying to do in those games and all of that sort of stuff. The same game mechanics, the same style, the same writing. Like, you have a lot of people going back and forth between those two series, and Devil May Cry literally starting as a potential.
Yeah, it was originally going to be a sequel to Resident Evil, so.
Yeah, so like that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, it was the bugs. It was the giant bugs where I'm just like, this feels like a fucking Dante enemy.
They're like Nekimios or something. I'm trying to remember. They're like the giant like praying mantis things, right? That's what you're talking about.
Nastivadors. Because they can camouflage. Is the whole thing. And like that was one of the freaking cool things. I just thought it was a corpse, but it had like hid itself to look like rock. So I'm like, oh, that's a dead one. And then I walked by and it jumped up and attacked me. And I'm like, that was freaking cool. Like, there's been some cool moments. But the room where I was in with them, it was like the ballroom. And I'm just like, I want to be done with these.
They kind of like semi-fly too, right? Like
they
like
fly. Yeah, they're flying. And they're bigger deal as a flying enemy now. And the whole thing is like, if you're out in the open, they're just going to fucking rip your head off. So you kind of like need to make them land to pursue you. So like that was cool. That was like a cool, I need to understand my enemy of it. But there were just so many of them. And it's this way.
You got a flamethrower or anything?
No, I don't have a flamethrower. That'd be awesome. I'm sure there will one day be a flamethrower. Because I've seen other people play the game.
I'm spoiled by Dead Space, sorry.
It's all right. I'm spoiled by watching other people play it and then being like, but I like these guns. I'm going to use these guns.
Yeah, that's the other thing is you can't say that you feel like you're running out of ammo and you're having a hard time bringing down all these guys and then openly admit you're not buying some of the more powerful weapons in the game.
Well, so there's the difference, right? Like I stuck with the riot shotgun instead of the striker shotgun. Because the riot shotgun is like half rifle.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that I can shoot stuff from far away with a shotgun and do damage.
Right.
Where like, as much as I love the like barrel shotgun, I'm like, it's a lot of money for something that like, I already have a weapon that handles that department. Like that'll be a second
because I think
time.
you get higher damage, but you don't get as much range. I feel like that's the toss up.
Yeah. Well, right now, the damage is negligible until I level that up. So it would be selling back the riot, and I'm like, I kind of dig that. It's more like I just didn't buy the rifle that's available. I found a rifle, and that rifle is like my best friend, because it does 3 times damage to weak points.
Nice.
So like that's how I'm killing stuff, is I'm getting their weak points to show out, and then a couple of shots from the rifle. I'm having a good time with it. I'm not going to...
You parry that chainsaw?
Oh, yeah, of course I parried that chainsaw. I've parried everything that I can parry because I'm afraid it's going to have, like, some challenge associated with it. Frick, I parried the chainsaw. Like, as soon as I saw that I could parry the chainsaw, I'm going to parry the chainsaw. I mean, my favorite thing, right, is the chainsaw guy, right? I'm like, I'm just going to survive. I'm not going to try to kill him. And I'm like, oh, this made this game feel a lot better. All I did was, like, slowly walk around the perimeter of the village as he tried to find me.
Yeah, no, you just gotta kind of play keep away with him because that's the horror of that moment is like you can't kill him. Like there's no end to that fight. So it's just a waste of time and ammo to try and do that. So the only thing you can do is run and hide.
Yeah.
And like he comes after you. And what's really cool is the ways in which they've actually changed up some of the places that people used to traditionally do that. Like it used to be really easy to cheese him by like climbing up like a clock tower or like a bell tower move, and they've like made the ladder break and shit like that. Yeah. So like really cool ways that they've played with the expectations of members of audience members.
You can't do my favorite thing to dog people is vaulting through windows because like you're invincible while you're doing that. So if you just keep vaulting through a window, like because I'm just gonna do that right now. Like I just need like a breather, so I'm gonna do this. And like nope, you can't vault it this time because there's too many zombies. And I'm just like, what the frick, game?
My secrets.
I've doomed myself. But yeah, so it's been a good time, but I think that this is probably going to be, I think they should take a break. Like, where's Devil May Cry 6? Bring it on. I'd play that right now.
And in terms of Resident Evil specifically, focus on some things like the movie. And man, I don't know if they'll ever do another season of that show for multiple reasons, but not least of which now because Lance Reddick is gone. Yeah. Although I would say that the character that he played in the show, they could very easily do a season 2 and have that character's story be complete. Like they do some pretty solid like roundabout stuff for his character in the first season that he wouldn't have to be in the second season. They would have to probably mention something along the lines of like, you know, now the dad's disappeared or something weird like that. Like some offhand line for why he's not there. But it wouldn't mean that we'd be missing some huge swath of the story.
Yeah. I mean, my whole plan was to hopefully finish the game and then watch the series. So I will say this, though. John Wick 4 acted as a very fitting tribute to Lance Reddick.
Yeah.
In just so many ways. So I feel like I honored him despite not getting to watch Resident Evil yet, and it probably won't be until two
Zach,
episodes.
and all credit to Zach for reminding us of this, but we're also gonna have a Hellboy game coming out with him playing the titular Hellboy himself. Like I'm so excited about that, and it's a choice that I would never have picked, or like in like a like a fantasy draft for to play Hellboy, but I am 100% on board. Like I cannot wait to hear what he brings to that character.
Well, and there's also going to be a second season of Farzar. That was the thing that I was going to bring to the table this week.
Oh man, I didn't know they were able to get that squared away. I didn't know
apparently
that
it's done. They're just waiting to release it. Like that I credited for stuff.
There's not too much more to say here. But I stumbled across an old interview with Reed Hastings. I think that like a TED talk or something. Not the one he was given, but he was being interviewed, and somebody asked him, like, one of the questions the interviewer asked him was like, why would you turn away from a project that has all of this critical success and stuff like that? And he just, like, without hesitation is just like, because people aren't watching it. Like, we don't base any of our renewal information based on like how good or how many awards a show is getting. It's great when they do that, but at the end of the day, if people aren't watching it, we can't be in a position to be supporting that. So he's just like bluntly is just like, people will tell you that they're watching this thing and they're sad that it's not coming back, but they weren't watching it. It's like, whoa, holy shit. Like, he just had this whole like run off about like, we renew and we make the stuff and we keep working on the stuff that people are actually pressing play on. Like, at the end of the day, pressing play, and as you and I have found out over the years, like how much of something they're watching actually matters as well. And they've got numbers on that kind of shit. And he's just like, we know all that, and we base what we do on that. It's not hard, and it's why every time they do something fucking crazy, and everybody's like, this is it, this is the death of Netflix. Oh, they've lost The Office. I'm never gonna have Netflix again. Or oh, Seinfeld's gone. I'm not gonna watch Netflix. They just kind of just shrugging and say, okay, and then you keep paying your monthly fee for Netflix because they know that's exactly what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I am glad that I'm using Netflix more. I will say that I've really struck a good balance. Rewatching Murder Mystery to be prepared for the sequel coming out next Friday. Very excited for that.
Nice.
Very excited for Tetris.
That one's
on
be,
Apple TV.
Apple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I am legitimately excited for Tetris.
I'm legitimately excited about that movie.
There's another one kind of coming out in that same vein. What am I thinking of?
I don't know.
We'll have to do some research, but there was another one that was announced kind of along that same way of like, let's take this really innocuous story and like tell a really badass version of it.
Is it Air? Is it the shoe? Is it the Nike
Air.
movie?
I might be thinking of Air. Is it like in that same vein? I don't think that's quite what it was, but that definitely fits exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, let's do this really over dramatic version of this business deal.
Which that was so trailers before John Wick were excellent. I was so happy to see. Like, it was the first time I felt like, man, I remember why I love movies. Like, this is why. Like, Joyride looks like it's gonna be a blast, and Sisu looked really cool, and there was some other stuff that like really appealed to me. And then Flashpoint, like, I don't know how to feel about that. It kind of looks like they want me to see that movie for Batman, and that's weird.
That was the joke I made when they put the fucking poster out.
Yeah.
The first poster they put out for Flashpoint had the fucking Batwing in it and the Flash standing in Batman's shadow. Like, it just like a tiny little thing of the Flash. Everything else was Batman oriented. And I was like, man, sure glad I'm gonna pay money to see this Flash movie that
Yeah, it's like the trailer yesterday. 2 days ago when we saw John Wick 4 was...
You're talking about the latest trailer that has like the Keaton reveal in it, right?
So that one was before Quantumania that I saw that. Like, okay. Now it's got like full on scenes with Keaton talking to him, and I'm just like, this is if I'm seeing this movie, it is for friggin' Michael Keaton playing Batman again. It is not for any other reason.
I will consume that movie because of something like Michael Keaton, but I will not in any way be paying for that film. So I'm going to figure out my ways around that.
Oh yeah, I mean, wait for it to come to HBO Max, decided. Right? Like that's gonna be the best way to do it. Yeah, I don't know if I am right there with you on it, because But yeah, it's like they're selling that movie
also,
on Michael Keaton, and I'm like, cool.
Yeah, I also am not, and because of all of that, I also don't feel any need to see it immediately. So if it takes years for me to finally get around to it, then fine, that's so be it. I don't care.
Such
It's
is
just
life,
so
yeah.
it's such a hard place to be in right now as the consumer, but like I always have to keep reminding myself and keep coming back to the fact that there's like the other side of this whole fucking thing is actual people going through some actual real shit that need help, and like that should be the first concern before any of that.
Right, but also like knowing that it's actual people who are going through this stuff. This is a really nice bookend to it, right? And then we'll probably send this one off to Will. Is that like, because there are real people there, because it's not just corporations and it's not just ones and zeros, like, yeah, like, I'm not one of these people that are like, oh my god, I can, the phase 5 is done because of Jonathan Majors. It's like, that's not my thought. But the thought is that, like, it's going to be weird to go see a movie if this guy's in that movie, considering what we know about the situation. Yeah. Like Ezra Miller,
if not for one particular after credit scene, which it seems like that's what everything fucking hinges on nowadays, anyway, according to Zachary Levi. But well, and we should be fair in that moment and point out that he was actually just reposting a full-on like article from another website that
from Variety,
argument, right? From Variety, trying to make this argument, which is just like even worse. But anyway, if it were not for one after credit scene from Quantumania, there'd really be no reason why they couldn't bring in another actor and just say that it's just a variant, right? Like one of the mid-credit, the mid-credit scene is the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Which kind of fucking has landed them in this weird place now where they've kind of really tied themselves to this actor in a lot of ways. They could still probably get away with bringing a different actor in. Fuck it. They've done it before when they didn't like that Terrence Howard asked for more money. Maybe they should do it now. Oh, man.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah, if we hadn't seen what we saw in that mid-credit scene, also one of the worst performances from him, just gonna be honest about that. I didn't like the third one. I liked the first two, but the third one, when he finally spoke, I'm like, no, I don't really dig this.
Well, they really leaned into picking some of the most weirdly racially coded versions of him that they could. It was really wild.
Like, no, that's why it's Jonathan Majors, though, that's playing this character. Oh, okay. I mean, it's Kang, so I know what Kang does, and I know who Kang is. This was a choice that you made.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, if that hadn't happened, if we hadn't seen what we saw there, you're right. You could switch it up. And honestly, switching it up would also kind of make sense. Like,
well, especially because with what happens at the end of Ant-Man, it'd be like this huge like reveal to find out this person they've been up against this whole time is technically this other Earth's version of this person that they've already defeated, and like being able to hide that behind the actual identity of the person. Like there's so much they could play with there. So that's the other thing, is that Marvel Disney is also in this very unique position with all of this bullshit to be able to just kind of kick people out. I mean, the other thing is, the other one that everybody forgets about is how they were so quick to say that maybe Spider-Man doesn't need to be as big as they were planning. Like they completely changed course on Spider-Man with all the shit that Sony pulled. So like they're not afraid to shake shit up when money's on the line. Now the question's going to be, are they willing to shake shit up now that like this whole,
now that humanity is on the line?
Yeah, their humanity is actually in question here. Like, how are they going to approach what these victims are going through?
I mean, that's the reason. Like, there's the conversation about Flashpoint, is the fact that like we know what Ezra Miller did. We witnessed it. So like, it's weird that they're like, yeah, this movie's still coming out though. Going to cancel the Batgirl movie. And so this does not forgive them, but I'm wondering if this is the reason why they have really leaned so much into making this a Batman focused movie instead, is because they're trying to turn away from the Flash. That, or they understand that people are not going to be able to be sold this film on the back of Ezra Miller's.
Right. Exactly.
So.
Right.
I don't know. It's certainly an interesting situation that we're going through right now with popular culture. And again, we're just reporting that it's happening. As more information comes out, we will make sure to just as fairly report that. But I mean, it was
look into shit yourselves. Don't depend on people.
Don't just depend on us. But like, we're not. it's an ongoing thing is the most important thing that I want to say. This is not the end all be all on that situation, but it was it felt worth discussing when that was the first interaction I had with you today.
Yeah.
And then it also ties into so much of everything else. I mean, the last thing, right? Last thing on Black Adam and Fury of the Gods, and then we probably won't talk about it for at least 2 weeks. There's a Devon Decker promise I hope we can keep, right? A Say Report promise I hope we can keep. Is Henry Cavill did not show his face in the Shazam after credits scene, but he was there front and center for Black Adam. So you say what you will about how people feel about those movies, right? Like that indicates something to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we didn't touch on in like the way that people have talked about how The Rock is known for being a drama queen, and he is. Like
he is. He'd be the first one to admit it.
Right. I mean, but also like I am just fascinated by this idea that everybody's just believes that Dwayne Johnson somehow for one movie and one movie only held the fucking keys to the car for the entirety of the DC universe in his hands. And the thing is, he even thinks that. I'm not saying people are pulling that out of nowhere. The way he behaved definitely perpetrated that. But at the time, everybody was like, asshole thinks he's running the whole show. Now everybody's very happy to jump onto that because they can use him as an excuse for why their movie Shazam 2 didn't do good. And it's like, you dicks. Like when he was trying to act like this was the position he was in, everybody was shooting him down. And now you're more than happy to put him up there as like a fucking sacrifice because you want to talk about how he's the reason the whole DCEU fell apart. No, fuck off.
Yeah, no, you don't get to have it both ways. All I'll say, last thing on that, John Wick made 3 times as much money in its Friday than Shazam 2 did.
Nice.
And that just made me happy to see.
Any more points, Columbo?
No, I think that's it. Anything you want to add?
No.
All right, cool. So if you would like to talk to us about the emerging things, how you feel about pop culture or anything there, you can find us on Twitter at The Say Report. That's also the best way to get in touch with Sejohn, since he canceled this Twitter account. So he was trying to avoid the negativity of like that echo chamber. Turns out that negativity is everywhere, and I am very sorry, Sejohn.
I will say I'm very happy I'm not on Twitter this weekend with everything.
Oh,
so
yeah. Don't blame you.
And if you want to get in touch with Dev and find out more about where he got these cool water bottles so that you can get some information on the maker, we should make sure that that's out there. You can reach Devon at Devon D. Decker.
Yeah, I mean we're gonna put them through their paces, and then we'll have more information about them next episode. So, but yeah, get in touch if you're interested in a water bottle. I want to hear about it. Until then, William, please bring us home.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.